Could you explain to us?
I arrived here last month.
Oh, last month. You just only just 1 month.
Yeah, 1 month.
Thank you. So based on your experience since the 1 month, what you feel in Indonesia, especially in Bandar Lampung?
I don't know. I think that the climate is really different, so it was completely different. How you interact with the outside, because it's tiring, to go outside and to walk, and so that's different because we walk a lot in France, and here it's not that much the case. It's mostly motor. So yeah, it's really different.
Okay, so what every day's activity that you do?
Here?
Yeah, here. As you live in Rusunawa, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is your daily activities?
It's like everyone, I guess. I wake up, I go to my internship, and then depending on what we want to do with my friends, we go to a cafe or to the gym, and that's it.
Okay, so you are internship in where?
In Bapelida, Kota, Bandar.
Oh, Bapelida, Kota, Bandar Lampung. So it's really correlates to your specialty.
Yes, I work about the fund management in the city and how urban planning can help with that.
Okay, so maybe I will talk about your environment on your internship. Like, how do you feel that internship have internship in Bapelida, Bandar Lampung? Could you share your experience to us? What you've learned from there? What you do?
I mostly, for the moment, I've mostly done research about the scientific papers that already exist about the subject in Bandar Lampung and Indonesia in general. And so now I'm trying to make a simulation to simulate big events of rain.
Okay.
So that you can simulate the biggest rain, for example, because it has a probability of arriving, and so the big ones, I can simulate one, and so try to see where the water goes, and so where it can be useful to have a management to manage the floods and everything.
Okay, so yeah, based on our previous what happened in Bandar Lampung is a flood, right?
Yeah.
You want to give us solutions about what happened in Bandar Lampung.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that.
There is no one-time solution that can solve everything, but there's always many solutions that you can take into account, and one by one, it mitigates the problem.
Okay, so with the problem mitigations that you are discussing about Bandar Lampung, the mitigations of the flood itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Florence, and we will start the discussions about more into the urban society. And by the way, I just curious about as someone who has lived in urban environment in France, what do you think is the most distinctive about urban society? Distinctive.
I don't have that word.
Okay, maybe specific differences. Okay.
The biggest difference between France and Indonesia?
Yep.
I think it's the transportation that's the most different. In France, I'm from near Paris, the Paris suburb area, and we use the public transportation a lot. We have 15 lines of metro, 1,000 lines of bus, and then we have big trains that are regional, and so you also have the high-speed train to all around France. So we really use a lot of public transportation, and not so much. There are a lot of cars. Because at some point on the 20th century, it was mostly car-centric. The urban planning, it was really about developing roads and developing vehicles, especially in France, because we have a lot of industry about automobile,
Yes.
about cars. And so since we have companies in France and with industries in France, we try to make a car-centric model, but we've shifted to having more subways, bus lines and everything. So we walk more, we use transportation system more, and I think it's what strikes me the most in difference with Indonesia.
Okay, so in the Paris, right? In Paris, so there is so many public transportations that are provided in there, and I ever heard about that Paris is a walkable places
Yeah,
per person.
it's really walkable because it's like kind of an old city. Like since it has been renovated in the 19th century, it kind of stayed like that because it was like a big renovation where they took the old city down and they rebuilt absolutely everything to make it Osmanian style. I don't know if you know, it's the style of the Paris buildings, and so since then it's like classified as historic, and so it has to stay like that because it's classified, and so it's really walkable. The streets can't move that much, and so even with the last mayor of Paris, she really wanted to make it walkable because at some point in some places there were a lot of cars that were just stuck because too much cars, because Paris is very small in size, but you have in the Parisian region about 12 million inhabitants, so that's gigantic in Europe, because in Europe we have really small cities compared to here.
It's very crowded.
Yeah, like Bandar Lampung would be the second most populated city in France if you compare.
Okay.
It's really smaller.
So, as a size, could you compare that Bandar Lampung and Paris itself? What is more bigger than Bandar Lampung or Paris, based on your research on your rapid? Is the big Bandar Lampung or Paris is bigger than Bandar Lampung? As the area.
The area, I think the area specifically might be Bandar Lampung because Paris is very dense as a city. Like you have the buildings and almost everyone lives in an apartment in Paris. I've never seen a house in Paris. And so in Bandar Lampung, since you have many houses, it takes more place horizontally, and so the area is bigger if you compare. Meanwhile, Paris is, it's often taken as an example because this style of building is the most dense type of city we have as a model. It's like, I don't remember the number, but it's pretty big.
So there's many skyscraper, right, in Paris? Skyscraper in Paris or?
Not at all. Actually, it's pretty fun because when the 70s came, the government was like, oh, we have to have a business district like every other city in the world. And so they tried to make it in Paris because Paris is the capital, it's the most well-known city in the world, so why not? And so they built one tower, that was a skyscraper, it's the Tour Montparnasse. Yeah, and it was so ugly for the citizens and for the government that they passed a law, and so now in Paris you don't have the right to make a building higher than the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, so there is a rule that we cannot just only build a building higher than the Eiffel Tower. That's a rule.
Not in Paris. It's a rule, yeah. It's a law and everything. So they were really like, never again we do that, and so it's really like now we just laugh about the Tour Montparnasse, like it's fun. It has nothing to do there, but why not? And so, but yeah, now it's really a rule. Like we want to keep Paris the way it is.
Okay, so we already talk about the Paris. We will move to. Could you explain the Paris itself by just 3 words for you? 3 words for Paris.
I would say, it's the capital, so that's an important thing because it's really like France is very centered on Paris, so it's important. Historic, because it will not change because of the classified monuments and everything. And populated, that's the bigger city of France, and so that's a big one. So yeah.
Okay. So how do you think about the romantic euphoria that?
Yeah,
That people already say or mentions like Paris is a romantic city. What do you think about that?
when you live near a monument or something that is known, you consider it less important than what people around the world might think. Like I live near the Eiffel Tower, and I went there once because there was a school because the school tell us go there because you will never go there because no Parisian wants to go to the Eiffel Tower. It's just there. And so I think that's kind of the same everywhere. Like if you live near something, you don't really see how people will think of it. And so, for example, I see all the tourists go by, and so I tell them where is the Pantheon because they all came to me and are like, where is this monument and where is this monument? And so that's what there is the saying that Parisian people are angry, but that's just we have like hundreds of people who tell ask us every day. So it's kind of difficult to imagine for them why it's so impressive and everything.
Okay, so yeah, for myself, is the Paris is like a really beautiful city. Because like I agree with everyone that said the Paris is romantic city because yeah, I always imagine that I can spend a holiday there, maybe with my girlfriend, maybe in there, and feel those euphoria, and it could be very good if in the Christmas like snowflakes will like walking together with our friends or with our companion like that, like it could be very fun.
I can get that.
So I will move to the questions that how you think that Indonesians people that always say as you as a person that live in the other cities, and Indonesian people always say that the other people that live in the other city is very amazing, like that, and very amazing, and like because they never feel that. And how do you think about that, like as a person that live in Paris?
I think if I can compare is when we arrived with my friends from France here,
Yep.
everyone was taking pictures and we were like, why? So that was kind of a culture shock, but it's true that people seem to be really like, oh, where are you from? And they're really enthusiastic about it. And while in Paris, it's just, oh, another tourist. Like it's so it's. I think it's at the same time kind of really amazing that people are so interested in knowing the other population that arrive there and visit, and so they are curious about it, and that's something really important to have, I think. And at the same time, it's really awkward when you're not used to it. But I think that's just different culture, you know. It's not something bad or something to change. It's just the way people are, and that's important to keep.
So, did you think about like is this only about culture shock? Maybe they said that because they never go to Paris or they never feel the new things like that. Like that's why they miss how the people in Paris living on their country. Like because of this, is that something new for Indonesia, or maybe for you, is there something new in Indonesia? Like you might be interested to our local culture or local heritage.
Oh yes, like I think it's really rich because Indonesia is like so many different cultures and everything, and so it's big, like really many people, many cultures, many, and so it's very diverse, and so I think it's something really rich, and like it's your culture is also very amazing. It's not because it's
Thank you
not
very
like
much.
it's not just Paris. Like Paris is a beautiful city, and in France we have some other cultures, but it's not as diverse as Indonesia. Like so many islands, so many different people, and everything. I think that's really important.
Okay, thank you very much. But I'm curious about are there any stereotypes about the French people that aren't entirely true?
The what?
Stereotype that not really true. Maybe that by frame by people media social, but you think it's not true. What is stereotype?
Yeah, stereotypes on French people.
On French people.
Yeah, I think like for example, I said the Parisians are angry, you know, thing, and so I think that's a stereotype that's not true because we're not angry at people. It's just we have to go. Like I arrive at school and then I have to go, and
Yep.
people ask me where is the Eiffel Tower, and I'm like,
Yes.
yeah,
It's a big city.
it's a big city, so it's very difficult to speak to people, and I know that it causes the image of not being reachable, and that's not completely false, I would say, but yeah. Other stereotypes is like that French people don't speak English, and I don't think. I think like when I arrived and I was speaking English, so people couldn't think that I was French. So no, we speak English. It's just that. So I mean, the older generation can't, but I mean that's the case in almost every country, you know. So it's not really true either. And I don't know much about stereotypes about French people exactly. So I know that we say that we are angry or that we are proud. I mean, it's not completely true. Like it's um, more than pride. It's just I think difference of how we speak. And so, like for example, when people in Indonesia text me, I it's really weird. So they put they put three dots, and I don't know if it means that I did something bad, because if you put three dots at the end of your message in France, then you're really like it's not good at all. So it's really different, and so it's hard to know. And people here use a lot of stickers. You don't do that in France. Like it's really different way of talking that really change the thing. Yeah.
Okay. So there's so many stereotypes that are not really true, right? By the people in here, by the stereotypes that makes the French people that say maybe other cold people. That's not true, right?
That make a what?
They call people like
Yeah.
individualism.
In Paris, it might be a little true because there, people are just rushing everywhere. We walk fast. We go straight to the point. We don't have time to side quests like that all the time. But I think that in other places in France, it's really less the case.
So, because it depends on the situation of the city itself, right? Like, the city is very crowded and so many packed activity that every French people have to do on the day that from the morning they will just wake up and have to go to work, and there are so many traffic. Is there a traffic jam there?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a traffic jam in France, and especially in Paris, because
In Paris.
yeah, like, as I said, they try to make a car-centric model, so it's still quite there. So you have big jam hour, and you're like, oh no, not the rush hour.
Okay, so is happen too in Paris.
Yeah.
What time? Like you can explain us what time in traffic jam usually happens in Paris.
So it's very different because here you wake up very early, so it's hard for us because, like, for example, I have to be at the office at 7:30. In France, we wake up at 7:30, so it's really like we wake up and we're like, oh wow, it's so early, and so it's dark outside. But in France, yeah, we start office work often starts at like 9, yeah, something like that. And so you have the rush hour is mostly like 8 to 9, and it's the same for transportation. You know, public transportation, like subways and everything. You have more people between 8 and 9.
Okay. So in Manila, we start from 7, but in Paris start from 8.
Mostly 9, I'd say.
Mostly 9.
Yeah.
Okay. So it could be very fun if we can just wake up at PM because I think it's too early morning if we have to wake up at 7 a.m. like that. So I want to ask you about these questions, just more specifically about the tourism itself. Now, in the past, people might have focused on traveling to relax or see famous places, but now it seems like many people are looking for aesthetic places, hidden gems, and even just the go to the place this because the places go to viral, like social media. Do you feel like this trend is also happening
In front or outside of Indonesia?
outside Indonesia?
Yeah, I think it's kind of true. Like, people don't want to go. Like, if I take the example of my friends, when we come here, like, they are mostly trying to research places that are not like touristic places. That's kind of the trend in Europe and in Western culture, I would say. It's like trying to find places that are niche, I would say, like, you know, kind of hidden, and so it's I don't know. It sounds kind of more of cooler if you find something that isn't viral yet and that is very natural. For example, like we went to Kyoko Beach, for example,
Kyoko Beach, okay.
and so there's so much things there. So it's really you feel like it's a tourist place, you know, like it's visible. Meanwhile, Juta Wisata, I mean, it's more calm, you know, more like wooden things, and it's very just the beach and that's it. So they prefer Juta Wisata because it feels more authentic.
Okay,
Yeah.
because there's not
La-
really crowded.
Yeah, and also less infrastructure that could really where you feel the touristic place, you know.
Okay, so now I curious about what places that you already visit. Like you say that before, like Kyoko Beach, the Wisata. Is there another places that you
We visit. I can't remember the name, but we visited like a place. It was not really a mall, but with full of clothes shop, you know. And so it was just a big hall like that, and you have all the shops there and there, and you just went from one to another like this. I don't really remember the name, but it was cool too, and it felt like we went to another mall, like the big mall, you know, because everyone kept talking about us about the mall because they were like, "This is the big thing," and we are like, "That's a mall." so
So you not go to the mall yet?
yes, we did, but it was like we saw Uniqlo, Starbucks, and we were like, "That's like in France."
Okay,
That's,
just
we're not seeing something new, you know.
ordinary, right?
Yeah, so it's we really wanted to see something that was more from Indonesia, and so
Okay.
we went to this little kind of mall, but with just little shops
Okay.
held by one or two people. And so when they sold clothes that are like don't look like Uniqlo clothes or anything, so
Okay, so the places, the natural places that you are already visit is beach,
yeah, we visited like some pantai, and so we try to visit like we just go out with our friends, you know, so to coffees or to we tried to go to badminton once, but it was complicated. But yeah,
playing
just,
badminton.
yeah, just things like that from time to time.
Okay. So very cool that you already visit our local heritage, like local vacations in Lampung, in like Duta Wisata, like but we have another uh, vacations to go is maybe like to some visit beach, like in the west of Lampung, and you can visit uh, Rio by the beach, maybe like go to there, like feel the euphoria to the calm of the wave of the sea, like that. And if you go to Krui, like there is so many surfer.
Ah, okay,
Yes.
yeah, I've
Yeah,
heard of it.
it's very viral. You know, like every years that they conduct one competitions in there, like
Okay.
like surfing competitions. It's kind of good option if you want to go take a vacations with your friends. Yeah. Okay, so I will move to the next question. Like, do you think the social media is now helpful to tourism, or is it making things too consumerist?
I mean, it's hard to answer because I actually don't have social medias. Like, I don't have Instagram or TikTok, so it's really difficult. Like, I don't really know what's on there, you know.
Okay.
I just,
Okay.
I mean, it's not because I'm against social media or anything. It's just that I'm too lazy to watch all the photos and to post my own. And so I'm like, oh no, that sounds like a lot of time to take.
Okay.
So
So your media communication is only WhatsApp.
yeah, WhatsApp mostly. I watch YouTube videos, but that's it. Like,
Okay. Okay. So how do you get the information? Use them maybe like, look up for it. Ask your friend or
no, I mostly check Google Maps. I just
Google
like,
Maps.
I randomly tap on restaurants or
Okay.
places, and then I'm like, oh, that sounds cool, and let's go, and that's it.
Okay.
It's not very complicated. Just yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Florence. Like, I will like to jump to the next question. Like, as a business person, I also feel that tourism has become a huge economic opportunity. Many cafe, tourist attractions, and even small and medium enterprises have grown thanks to the travel trend. In Europe, people still prefer mainstream tourist destination, or are they now starting to seek out hidden gems?
I think hidden gems are really on trend right now. So
Okay.
yeah, like for example, I mean European people will mostly seek hidden gems. I think, like when you go.
Hidden gem seekers.
Yeah, really, yeah, that's really the point. Like they're just like we're in the adventure.
Okay.
And so you're like, okay, let's just go to the Saturday restaurant. I don't know, like if you want, but so they don't want to seek the real big restaurants who are clearly made for tourists. That's something they would try to avoid.
Okay. So like maybe you and your friend like to adventure your own country like Paris, like want to look up for the newest places that we have to visit like that.
In Paris?
Yes.
No, it's mostly like in Paris, since it's a walkable city, and I think that's what makes the big difference in terms of how touristic it is. Since it's a big city, walkable, you just walk for 3 hours if you want, and then you will find some hidden gems. Because in Paris, if I can give you one advice, if someday you go,
Yep.
It's don't hesitate to go to the small dark streets because actually it looks weird, and then you go inside and you discover an incredible place with plants and with small restaurants that are held by French people, mostly for French people. So first one, you don't pay the tourist price. Okay, so that's something. I mean, it's mostly that big restaurants. You see that the menu is made for tourists when like there's literally a artistic style for restaurants made for tourists in Paris. You can clearly see which one it is, and so you can try to avoid that by going to kind of hidden gems, literally in Paris. You have a
gems in
lot of them,
Paris.
so don't hesitate to go out of the big way of the touristic guides.
Okay, so it's just if I go to Paris, I just go on a walk and we will find the
Yeah,
more hidden gems on there.
Yeah.
Every places.
that's the best way to visit Paris.
Okay, so the best thing that I activity that I have to do in Paris is walk.
Walking
Okay,
is actually really
Paris.
good, and so since it's not too hot in Paris, it's not as tiring. Also,
Okay. So is there any bicycle or that provided to public?
oh yeah, you have a lot of bicycles in Paris.
Okay, so
And so also the city, they try to make people use bicycles more, and so you have some bicycles that are like there, and you can take them by with an app, and so you can just borrow it for the day or anything.
so those the system in Paris, like so we can borrow the bicycle.
Yeah, and it's the city that put the price, so it's not expensive in comparison to a bicycle that you could borrow from a private shop or anything.
Okay, so the Paris environment is supporting to the bicycle user. Okay, it's cool if I have a chance to go to Paris. I will do that every activity that you advise to me. And I want to move to the next questions again about tourisms. Like, in your opinion, does tourism have more positive impact or challenges for the local?
It really depends on what kind of tourism you look like. Like, for example, for beaches and for forests and for natural environment, it could be really like it could degrade the environment. Like with the waste and everything that tourists can leave, it has an impact. Like we can see it in France. We have France, like that you can see on the European map, but we have a small island in the south of France. It's called Corsica, maybe in English. Maybe you know, and so it's called the most beautiful island in the world because it's also a really beautiful island, but it's really like important to keep it to preserve it because there are so many tourists that the beaches are degrading and everything, and so it's really something we want to preserve. It's the same problem in Spain or in other countries with beaches. It's the most, I think, affected place. So it's really important to, if you want to develop tourism with beaches, you have to make sure that everything is in order to host the tourists without them degrading the nature and everything.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's very insightful for us that your perspective about the tourism itself that affect to our local communities. And I will jump to the next question. Sometimes, okay. So if you have to recommend the people from France that there is any one place that you have that you need to recommend to your friends in the place in Indonesia that you want to recommend to your friends in Paris.
I mean, I've not been here for so long,
Okay.
so I've been in Bandar Lampung and I visited Bandung also.
Bandung.
Yeah, Bandung.
Okay.
And so
So what you meet there?
the first important thing is that it wasn't as hot, and so that's the most important point for me.
It's really hot there.
Yeah, like it was really okay compared to here, so we were like, finally. And but that's very European thing because we are weak to the heat, so yeah. But
Okay.
I think that maybe like the place I'm the most excited about when because we plan to visit other cities during the weekends and everything is Yogyakarta, like because of the cultural importance of the monuments and everything, and so it looks like a city with like a lot of, I mean, it's big monuments and big touristic places, but it's very cultural. It's not made to be on Instagram or anything. It's just that it's beautiful because it is. So I'm really excited about that one. And maybe I have another something else to answer when I've seen other places actually.
Okay, so you basically already go to the
Not so much Jakarta.
not so much Jakarta, but you already visited.
Yeah, we will visit, but maybe later. Yeah.
Okay, later. Okay, we will talk about the La Défense today. So could you explain what is the La Défense is. Because we will talk about the urban city and also the architecture into the business, impact into the business. Could you explain us what is the La Défense?
Yeah, so La Défense is Paris business district. It's the equivalent of the city in London, I would say. So it's a district in the. It's not in Paris because, as I said earlier, it's impossible to have skyscrapers in Paris. So it's in the suburbs of Paris, in the northwest position. And so the district was transformed and it started in the 1960s. So that's where they started to build skyscrapers and everything. And so nowadays it concerns about 200,000 workers from the Parisian region. But you also have some schools with like 70,000 students. And you have some inhabitants, but it's not the primary activity that there. You have like 50,000 inhabitants. So you have more than 2,800 companies. So that's a big point. Like that's the biggest European business district since England left the EU. So it's really important. And so you have people that can come from very far actually to go there. And so if I could say like it's a major business district. Like people in France have a really strong opinion about that. Is that it's a really important place, and especially in the 80s, it was like the place to be. You know, it looked so much American, like skyscraper, the skyline, and also it was the dream of many young people who were starting their studies and everything. And so it really like has a strong alright reputation, you know. So it's important in that case, but it's also like we kind of start to have problems with people who think that the space is kind of inhuman, you know, like very concrete, very high towers, and so it's different from Paris because the architecture is very different from what we can find in other French cities. So it's kind of disturbing for people, and so the number of people that is very massive for a space of that size is really not helping with that feeling that you are just in the mass and all, you know.
So it's very interesting about La Défense is the major business district. So how the impact into the society itself, like surround of the La Défense itself, maybe on the side of the La Défense, beside of the La Défense, like is that impact really impact to the others area beside La Défense?
Yeah, so of course it's a major business district, so it's brought a lot of people here. So you have the Parisian region who gained inhabitants a lot, so that's already something. It also created a new kind of tourism. It's like affair tourism for people who just go to Paris and then go to La Défense because they have a meeting or something, and so that's just how it is. And also, I would say that it really impacted the urbanism in the Parisian region because the Parisian region is so important and all the cities are so connected that the transportation system is really managed by the region, not the city.
By the region.
Yeah,
The
so
region of the La Défense.
no, the region of
region of
Paris and all
Paris.
the surrounding suburbs.
Okay, so it's connected to other regions.
To other cities mostly, but also some regions, I think. But yes, cities. And so when La Défense came up, since it's in the northwest of Paris, that's not the place where people habit, actually. Like people mostly live in the east suburbs of Paris, and so you had to develop a lot of subways and everything. So there are like 5 lines of subways who directly go to La Défense, so that people actually can go there. So it really impacted where the people would actually go. And in the city where La Défense was built, there are several cities, but they were very poor, some of them, and so that's why there was space actually, and so the price of the square meter of inhabitant of residential,
Okay,
it rose a lot, so it's very higher now than what it was for the inhabitants. So that's also how it affected the place.
okay, so the residentials still is there in still in La Défense? Is there any residential?
There is, but it's really not the majority. Yeah.
Okay, so the basically is the La Défense is focused into the business.
Mostly, but that was before because now there is like many problems with La Défense because of how it was designed. Like having a district entirely based on having offices, it's not really sustainable for a city because a district needs lives at all the stages of the day. So you come on the work hours and there are people, and then on the evening there's just nobody in the city. And so that's really strange, and it's caused a lot of problems, especially after COVID-19, because
Okay.
2020 arrived, and then the offices were completely empty. So
Oh, okay.
it
So a
caused
lot of force is empty, like
so,
all
so
the
like,
office.
yeah, so it's just an empty space like
Okay.
this. So it's really weird.
Yep.
And also, since it was since there was telework, work from distance,
Okay. Yeah.
it kind of stayed, So it's more like now the work days are just Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then on Friday and Monday you don't know what happens, but there's
Okay.
not so much people, and so it causes problem for the shops that live there because since there are no residential housing or anything, it's mostly the office workers who go to the restaurant or to the shops, and so they lose 2 days of business, and so that's very important. And many of them have problems with that because now they have less clients, less time of the week, so it's important to take in account. And also, since there are many people who don't come on Mondays or Friday, the there is less demand from the offices. They need less place, and so the demand has reduced. Meanwhile, to have a space for offices, so people ask less, and so
Cost less.
yeah, so the towers become empty, and so
Okay.
that's a real problem because now we have about 20% of empty offices, and that's a lot because if you compare to Paris, which is
Okay.
like the place where you have the less space available, like in Paris, you have 4% of vacancy. That's really low, and so there you have a space with 20% of vacancy. Meanwhile, the rest of the region is in tension because people don't have houses at this point. So it's really important to have that, and so that's big problems because the towers, they are extremely big because it's skyscrapers, but they are impossible to renovate because it's so big, and so they need so much investment. Meanwhile, the price has decreased, and so what people are really scared about is that the companies won't renovate the towers because they wait until the price rise again, but it's not sure it will. So actually, it's kind of we don't really know what will happen, and that's kind of terrifying for the people who live there, but who feel that the shops will never come back to life or things like that, and so it's really difficult for them. So that's kind of why the new project for La Défense is less close to what we can think of a business district. Now the objective of the social service that take care of La Défense is to have more green spaces because it's so much concrete on that space that it's a heat island and everything. So they want to make sure that it's not the case, and they want to build a 5 hectares park in La Défense. So it's big if you consider the space that it actually takes. So that's a big plan. With that plan, 60% of the area of La Défense will be green spaces. So it's really important. And also, they want mixity of use. Now they want to have residential, shops, and offices to live together, and also schools, so that there is life in the neighborhood at every stage of the day. So,
Okay, so the main focus of the La Défense project is the 60% the green areas,
yeah.
and also the mix of the area of the residential, the business places, and also the school, like academic places,
Yeah.
like that, like so it can collaborative more effectively, and also could what the main occasions of all of these missions because of the main problems before.
The main problems is like there's an attractivity problem for La
Okay.
Défense. Like young people do not think of it as the perfect place to work anymore. It's not as cool as in the 80s to work in skyscrapers and everything. So people don't really want that life anymore, and so they have to reinvent themselves. And that's why they put green spaces because nobody wants to work in a concrete world. They want to work in like with trees and everything, and to feel that they're in the future with environment and everything. So that's important. And also, people don't want to live far from their work anymore. Like people in France, they tend to think that the life in houses is like paradise and everything. So they went far from Paris, And so they were like, oh, if I have a car, it's not too bad because I'm still 20 minutes away from Paris, you know,
Okay.
because of the car. But with the traffic jam, as we said
Yep,
earlier,
as you said.
it's not longer so true that if you have a car, you can go anywhere very fast. So it takes a lot of time and it's very tiring to do that for 40 years of your life until you retire. So people
Okay.
don't really think that they want to work as far from the house as before.
Okay, so it's really connected where the people live and people work. They're just connected more short.
Yeah,
Yaps.
and also make sure that there is a mixed city so that people can actually meet. Like you can have, like for example, in France, you have social housing objectives,
Okay.
and so no city can have less than 20% of social housing. So to make sure that there is mixity and that you don't concentrate all the poverty on one place, because if you do that, there's just the problems that can come in one specific place, and it becomes really hard to manage.
Okay, thank you very much, Florence, for the explanation of the love of the phones. It's very insightful for us to get to know more about the ladder phones. That now I want to ask you about is you any words for youth, like to think about the sustainable city that they need to concerns about, like about the sustainable city, that how you can arrange them or can make them get more spirits to think what you think about the implications of the future project of the phones itself, that maybe you could motivate all of the people in here.
To make planning that could
Yep,
help.
so you could say a word maybe for youth in here, maybe for our friends in YouTube streaming and also our friends here, like how importance of the concerning in sustainability city.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the point of having a livable city. Like having a sustainable city, it's literally what it means. It's a city that can sustain
Yeah.
in time and be livable for a long time. And so I think that it's not just important, it's the most important subject about a city, to make sure that people can live there comfortably for a long time and also for multiple generations also.
Okay, so thank you very much for your words for us like that. And about the sustainability itself, like how what is your opinion about the impact of the communities in our surrounding about the sustainable city itself?
I think it can be important because if a community comes together and try to make their city more sustainable, they can, because they actually live there and they have the tools to make sure that if they want something, they can make a project right or everything. And so it's important to have a strong community to speak with your neighbors and everything to make sure that if you have an objective in common, or maybe even if you don't know each other, you can still have projects that you want to make come true, and maybe you don't know that your neighbor has the same will that yours. So try to, yeah, if you have an idea that can make your life better, just try to do it, and that it's really.
Okay, thank you very much, Florence. So uh, this is very correlate with our main missions, like sustainable development goals that being sounded by United Nations. I really interest with this topic about the leather phones because of the sustainability aspect that we've learned today, that could make a greater future for us to live in our city, and the development itself that connected to the business aspect and also the tourism aspect. And last but not least, I want to you can share your main project, like ever you have a project, like you're running the project for the sustainability of based on the topic, like
Well,
experience. Is there any?
that's a big question.
That's a big question.
I would think that in France it would be to have the same means to do, for example, the transportation about bikes,
Yeah.
bicycles. We have bicycle lanes, but it's always like they give it to the cities to make this amount of kilometers of bicycle lanes. And I think that what would be important is that the same means were given to environmental activities than to polluting ones. Like for roads, we have a big ministry that we connect everything together. Meanwhile, bicycles, it's not connected if you go out of the city. So having like the same, I would say, ambition, like to have a national rail work of road for bicycles. Like, and I think that it could be the same everywhere. I'm not consider that environment is one ministry, but consider that it is inside every ministry, for example, for every country, so that it can be more effective, because actually it's not just one ministry that takes care of things, meanwhile the others do the opposite. It's really incorporated to everywhere.
Thank you very much, Florence. Now we will jump to the next sessions. Then we will track with our viewers on YouTube. And I will open Q&A sessions or questions and answer sessions. That maybe is there any friends in here that wants to ask a questions to Florence regarding our topics? Okay, I still opening that. Is there any questions like maybe you could share with us? So the lot of phones is a very huge area. Based on the sustainable city itself, like how you could explain the architecture of
Yeah, so La Défense is actually, most of the towers are really like skyscrapers that you could imagine. So just big towers of glass and concrete. And so I think that it's one of the reasons why it's kind of not liked so much by the people. It feels kind of impersonal, you know.
Okay, so it's throwback to the throwback from the before our conversation before, like there is a rule about we cannot build the building higher than the Eiffel Tower, but in the is there any
Yeah.
the rule is not
No, it's not applied because it's actually outside of
Outside
Paris.
of Paris,
It's a city
okay.
just right next to Paris.
okay. So it's okay that there is a high tower skyscraper that being built in the La Défense, but not allowed to build it in Paris.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. So I still open for our friends in live streaming if there are any questions to Florence regarding our topic today's. Okay, so maybe I will read the comment sections. Okay, I have questions once more. I think, like, by your opinion, what the business concept district in Paris makes difference to other countries? Like, what is the difference of the platforms? Like, you feel maybe in Indonesia, the specific differences
Between like a business district
platforms
in Indonesia.
and also in Indonesia.
I don't know. Do you have what business district do you have in Indonesia?
Business district Indonesia is Jakarta.
Jakarta, yeah.
Jakarta, like SCBD, Sudirman district.
Okay.
Like that. Could you explain the differences? Maybe if you already research about the SCBD itself.
I think it's more like La Défense was really built on the style of business district, like stereotypical, you know. So it's really like, it's not so French, you know. It's not a specificity of France. Like they tried to make it kind of having French culture by putting some art, for example, because there is permanent artwork in La Défense. But that's about it. Except from that, it's really skyscrapers, yeah.
Okay. So, thank you very much. I will ask you maybe about the French
Like a cultural fact, something that we do that is strange for other countries.
Yeah.
I would say la bise.
Labis. What is labis?
Labis is the way to greet like your family or friends when you go to a family dinner or something like this. It's like you kiss on the cheek the people, but like 2 times, like one on one cheek.
Okay.
And so it's kind of free because it's codified. So in each region you have different number of times you do it. So in some regions you do it 4 times, in some you do it 6 times.
Okay,
becoming a
so,
lot.
so
So
based
yeah.
on the every regions like have a difference.
Yeah.
Labis like
Yeah.
okay.
But most of the time it's just 2 times.
2 times. Usually usually every regions did that like, times only. Okay, there is a questions from our friends here. Please drop your questions to Florence.
It's like how does La Defense manage the hybrid work, like work from home and work in office? Okay, so I will start with this one with you. So it's I think it's some of the problems that it faces. So as I said, there is vacancy that is rising because people don't work as much, and so the companies don't need as much space, and so you have some of the towers that are empty in some way, and so you have 20% of vacancy in La Défense compared to 4% in Paris, and so that's a big gap. And I think that's one of the reasons why the government is trying to change um, the way La Défense is built. So for the moment, it is mostly offices. But what the public service in charge of La Défense wants to do, at the same time to address climate change also, is to have a mixity of use. So having not only offices but like also residential and some schools for higher education, because it would be useful for education students who works in economy to have all the headquarters of companies at just 100 meters, and so that's a big opportunity to find internships and everything. So that's one way. Um, so they want more residentials that it's mixed and so it's used every day. And they also want to have 60% of the surface of La Défense to be green spaces. So they will build a 5 hectares park inside La Défense, so to make sure that it's not a heat island, because it's so much concrete and people can't stand heat in France. So we can't stand a heat island. So it's really important for the government to make sure that the people who work there are not just burning there for 8 hours. And what was the last point of your question?
Is there any? Like you have 3 points. Okay, hold on. Okay, thank you very much. Is there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Oh wow, that's a big question. I'm not an expert in education or I don't know, in child development or anything, so it's kind of hard to address. But I think that I maybe seeing more things is, I mean, it's always kind of biased, because in France we have a lot of fashion and culture and everything, but it's French, so it's not as open as we might think. Like it's not just about having museums around you. If it's all European museums, and so people would that's why I think a lot of young people want to discover like different ways, like different countries, not only European, because like I help at the French class here in Unila for international students, yeah, and yes, it's we were talking um, about yeah culturally, France is really European, and they can't see, for example, they were working on tales and fairy tales in Europe. They are like, I can't see which one is German and which one is Russian and which one is French, and I'm like, that's normal. There's no way of seeing it very well because it's the same culture. When you really think about it, it's not so different. So I think that it's you can be open and having big dreams, but it's always European, and so you have to. It's really about diversity, I think, and yeah, we are surrounded by very many things, many fashion, but it's not. When you look at the big ones, big fashion designers who are coming, they often look at other fashions than just European fashion, and that's why we find it so interesting because it's new for us, and so there's still something to learn.
Okay, another questions.
I think that's a really question because actually it's really hard to say if the quality of life of the inhabitants of La Défense is better because, as I said, the price of residential rised. So it's really like some people are just like, I can't pay, so I go, and that's not the best way of having development. I don't think that's the best way, and so it's why it's really criticized in France also because it's a big residential, it's a bit no, it's a big office district with executives. So it's one specific category of the population that is very, I mean, it's richer than the majority of the people. So um, having a whole space reserved for them, meanwhile they just can do work from home because they mainly spend their days online and on their laptop. It's a real question, and having so much money given to them because they work for big companies, that's a real question. And for the sustainability part, um, I think it's even harder because this model of towers, it's not sustainable. Because the walls are made of glass. For example, in France, in winter, it's cold, and so it's so cold that people heat their apartments, and so you heat the offices, and glass is just not a big isolant. So it's really energy consuming, and so they are really most of these towers are not occupied because they do not respect the norms and the environmental ones, especially. So I think that this type of business district, and I think that's my opinion, but it's really hard to imagine the future with skyscrapers made in glass when we know that skyscrapers is high for nothing. It's not sustainable for all types of potential disaster you can have. For example, I mean, in France we are kind of safe with, for example, earthquakes. We don't have many earthquakes or floodings in Paris. It's extremely rare. So it's not so much the problem there, but in other countries, taking such a risk is kind of. I think. I mean, yeah, it will be complicated, and I feel that it really depends on where you are, and even in France, I don't think people want that much of these types of things because now they try to put green spaces to be like, oh, we're sustainable now, and indeed, it's a good thing to do, but there could be done much more at the beginning of the project to make it more sustainable.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Florence. There is any questions? Okay.
I haven't seen. I mean, in Indonesia, I only seen the museum about geology, so I'm not sure I can really say there is like, yeah, I don't know. I know some museum in Paris, but not that much, and so I don't really answer that. I think. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from comment section? Enough. Okay. Thank you very much, Florence, for the opportunity for us to take a little time about about the forms between business architecture and urban development. We in here
Don't worry, but thank you for receiving me today.
Okay.
It was an honor. Thank you.
Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Friends,
Thank
for
you,
this
Elmo.
opportunity.
Yes.
I have, I want to show, introduce you jargon or maybe motto from the business department. It says like cuan cuan cuan. You can say that.
Chuan,
Like,
chuan, chuan.
I said business, like you can say cuan 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 like that. Like.
Okay,
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Business.
Cuan,
cuan, cuan. Oh, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Oh.